Hello, Froggy here, and today we'll be breaking out of the first zone of Shattered Throne. We'll be doing this via an IRB, so you're going to need to bring a buddy. While you don't strictly need Navigator to do this, you're definitely going to have a lot more fun once you're out of box if you've got it. So just to show how parts can be done without Navigator, I'll be getting to the rooftop here with a grapple. You could naturally use stasis climbing as well, but you can get away with a single grapple. There's a little lip here you can jump off of. I'm going to be using my grapple to get a bit of height up ahead. We used to do this all the time without grapple flying, so it isn't strictly speaking necessary. But it is rather convenient. We need to stay pretty high while crossing this gap, because otherwise we'll trigger the first Autorez. And we're going to be using that to box break the second zone of Shattered Throne. The box kind of slopes downwards here, so you'll want to be a bit careful of that, and I would recommend going a bit out to the left. We're going to be coming back here in a moment to skip the first encounter area, but first we need to set our IRB point. Going to set up for ammo regen here. Since I'm at 58, I'll be able to get to full when I die as well, which is pretty handy. So we need to die anywhere around the lip of this drop. I like to use this statue because it's just kind of convenient. So now I'm going to set my ammo back to max, and you'll see that I respawn with full ammo. Now we need to die to the second encounter load, and we can do that back around where we landed. Want to just jump off here, and you can go right underneath the map. There are a lot of death barriers, so be a bit careful. You want to go right up against this tube, and when dropping below, don't go too far out or you'll probably find one of those death barriers. There is a fairly consistent death load that we can use. And to get there, you're just going to want to drop off the side here and then kind of slowly walk against this wall here. And if you do it right, you should show up out of box here. You can kind of see the rim of that tube from earlier. At this point, you want to have your buddy move forwards until the darkness zone turns on. Now, this spot isn't going to get us out of box in the first zone, but it will bring us somewhere that we can. Personally, I don't find this out of box terribly interesting, though there are some structures that you can see, like right above us here. There's this sort of stand-in for the first encounter area. Oftentimes in dungeons and whatnot, Bungie likes to kind of show you where you're going or where you've been. So they'll sometimes have intangible models of the areas you came from. You can kind of see below us there's where you would go in descent. So we can go all the way to the kind of Shattered Throne itself here. But there's not much around, and all of this exists in the first zone as well. So we're just looking for solid ground that happens to be shared between the two of them. Technically, it only needs to be in the destination, but it's just so much more convenient when it's available in both. One thing to note is that there's a bunch of turn-back barriers below us, which is why we gain some height. If you're not using Navigator, you could probably go the long way around, but Navigator, once again, is just more convenient here. Somewhere below, you'll find a floor of rocks. If you happen to get a turn back while dropping, either go back up or just run further from the map and you should get out of them. And I don't think this one's solid, but right below it there's some solid rock. So you may be wondering, how are we going to get back to the first zone? The answer is, luckily, we don't have to. I'm going to die here for good measure, but a wipe should kill you as well, so at this point you want your buddy to jump off the map and pull you back. I would recommend staying dead during that just to avoid any complications. Now that you're back in first encounter proper, it's time to do most of this, but not all of it, because we're going to be using the Autorez at the end. It's important that you don't die, but you can still help out with the clearing, so if you're feeling generous, I would recommend doing that. Although we will be able to get everyone out of the box with this, so you're not entirely freeloading. Anyways, with the encounter mostly done, it's time to hit the death load to Erebus, the first zone of Shattered Throne. To do that, you're just going to want to make your way back to the start and climb up on top. It doesn't really matter that the door is closed, although that can make climbing it a little bit more annoying, so if you're not using grapple flying for this, you'll probably need to be on stasis. About here will do. I find that the rooftop feels a whole lot larger when you're coming from this direction. But I'm pretty sure I was just the same size the other way as well. Need to make our way all the way to the back to hit that load zone. Thanks again to the Cube 17 and Nahsense for finding that this load is actually hittable. Nahsense shared an even easier way to hit it with me while we were doing this. Turns out if you find this very faint sort of line texture, not this one's too obvious, but if you can find that and just crouch, you'll hit the load. There we go. It's easier to see it at the side, so just go right to the end, crouch, and we're in Confluence. Nice and easy and risk-free. Which is just what we want when it's annoying to reset our IRB point. So now we just need to die to Erebus, and we can do that pretty easily by jumping out to the side here, and then approaching the load from the side. That thing is solid up there. But we want to come down here. Find this structure and just kind of slowly walk forwards against it. And now it's time for the Autorez. That'll happen right as soon as the final ad is clear. You can see Nahsense is just finishing up here. And now I'm out of box in first encounter. See, this is the same rock next to the kind of shattered tower. Now let's see if we can get Nahsense out here. He's in Confluence right now and has grapple flown over and is using the Winter Bite exotic. Turns out you can fall with that and die to the explosion. So now he just needs to do the same route I just did, and there are now two of us out here. I just gotta go get the res in lieu of an Autorez. Naturally, you could use this to get the entire fire team out. So let's go take a look at what doing that involves. I won't be using Winter Bite though. I'm a bit of a stickler for fighting lion. Once again, we gotta climb up here, but we've seen all of that. But we've seen all of that before, so let's just speed through it. Once again, at the end of the rooftop, you want to look for the line and give it a crouch. Seems I wasn't quite aligned there. Yeah, I think that's the line. Make sure you're all the way forwards. And there we go. Once again, we head back and do the very small sword flight onto the side parapets. But we aren't going to die to the load yet, because first we need to set an IRB point in midair. And to do that, I'm going to be using Fighting Lion. Of course, since it's an exotic, we can't have both Fighting Lion and Navigator equipped at once. And I do want to use Navigator here, just to make the setup more convenient. Though you may be able to get away without it. Nahsense is currently on that rock in Erebus out of box, so I'm using his position to line myself up here. We did a little bit of experimenting and found that to get the right speed to die in a specific place with Fighting Lion, you want to go about 4 grapple lengths up from your target. Once you've done that, you can swap over to Fighting Lion and you'll still be able to hold your position with grapple since the point will stay around. And once you've done that, you can just fall, and after you hear the wind whooshing sounds, you can give a 3 count, fire, and release, and you should die in midair. Give it a listen. And you can see we got the height just about right. And we conveniently are respawning right next to where we need to die to the load. This naturally goes just the same as before. Go against the wall and kind of slowly walk against it, and then your buddy can get your res. Huzzah! Well, now it's time for some exploration. Let's go take a look at this shattered throne thing. I really like these spinning rocks. If you've ever jumped out to them in the final encounter, you may have noticed that they are intangible, which is not too uncommon for spinning rocks like this. But it is nice to be able to leisurely reach out and touch them. I think we'll be going through one. Yeah, here we go. But yeah, you'll find that pretty much nothing out here is solid outside of the rocks down by where we set our spawn, and a bridge that goes right up to them. You can check out the kind of stand-in for the boss room over here. I feel like it's a bit smaller than it is in the actual encounter, but kinda hard to tell. It could be pretty close. It's got kind of the same general structure to it, although a little bit more enclosed. Kind of have the balconies here. There's a bit more towers off to the distance in this zone than off in the descent, which is why I wanted to explore out here instead. You can also kind of see the weird rock formations down below. We'll be getting a bit more up close with them in a moment. As with pretty much all of these structures, as I mentioned before, this is intangible. So we could just fly right through it if we wanted, but I'm just taking a look at the kind of glass planes there. There's also some harder to see architecture going on down here. And you'll find similar sort of structures scattered around. But you see, in one intangible clump of dreaming city architecture, you've seen it all, so let's move on here. Coming up on some of these rock chasms. You can kind of see the deceptively solid looking rocks below us, but don't worry about setting spawns on them because they are not terribly actually there. Looks like we're on the innermost section of the sort of rock labyrinth, so let's go find a more prototypical example. Just doing a bit of grappling since we can't regen sword ammo without going all the way back to the start. And we've got another set of chasms here. And just to show you that they are in fact intangible. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff to see around here, at least if you can make it out in the kind of darkness. I also like how you kind of leave the shadowy effects behind in a trail as you fall. But it isn't all dark. If you fall far enough, you'll find yourself out of the Ascendant bubble, which I'm not sure if this one is messed up at all with the whole bubble changes, but welcome to the purple. And we're spawned right back where we started. So you can gen back ammo and do the whole thing again. But yeah, I hope you come out here and find the time to experience it for yourself, and happy exploring!